What's up, everybody? I hope we don't have the sound issues that we had yesterday. I think we should be good though. All everything seems to be reading clearly here. Call me from New York already. Look, just get started. You know, everybody wants to call you whenever you as soon as you start your show. That's when everybody wants to call you. But anyway, I see we're good on Facebook. We're all good on. We're all good on. Excuse me. See, we're good on YouTube. Or we all good on Facebook. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I think we have at last reconciled the sound issues. Great stuff. Great stuff. Um, so before we get started, I just want to say, if you're watching this right now, as usual, please like and share wherever you can, wherever you are, and whatever platform that you're on. Because as you all know, YouTube and Facebook and Twitter have been making a concerted effort to silence anyone who disagrees with the mainstream narrative. And obviously, I am probably the leader in that pack. Not only on the left, whatever you want to call me, left, right, whatever, but I'm correcting everybody. We're telling the truth about everybody out here. So make sure that you subscribe as well. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Mikasa Sukasa. And I am your host, Niko House. Of course, as usual, I do want to thank our patrons and ask you to donate to our Patreon so that you can help grow the show. And you can do that by clicking on the description below if you're on YouTube, or going to www.patreon.com/Mikasa. Now, see, some people said that I need to be louder, so I'm going to raise the volume a little bit. Only a little bit, because some people say that it gets too loud, and I don't want to get too loud. So we'll go ahead and okay, cool. So I think we're good. I think the sound is fine. Like I said, I don't want to get too loud and get all crackly and whatnot. But so yeah, thanks you all so much for tuning in. So as most of you all are already aware, Andrew McCabe has been fired. And you all know where I stand on that issue. I think that Andrew McCabe should be happy that he is not in jail. However, there is a good possibility that he may still end up in jail, so he shouldn't get too happy. Okay? But he has been fired. Now, one of my favorite philosophies about politicians, or generally anybody in the political community, is that when you put their feet to the fire, one way or the other, they are going to start snitching. I truly feel as if that is one of the reasons that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is being put in power, despite how politically weak she is and how politically vulnerable she is. I feel like that's the reason that people seem to keep her around, although she is extremely careless and incompetent. I think that's the reason that a lot more Democrats haven't thrown Hillary Clinton under the bus, because they know that just as many secrets as they know about her, she knows about the same about them. So politicians are snitches, right? They don't care. A lot of them don't care about people, which is what leads them or allows them to do a lot of the corrupt practices that they do. And so they are always pursuing their self-interest no matter what, whether it be consciously or unconsciously. And I think that we've seen another example of that in Andrew McCabe. This story actually broke last night. It was yesterday evening that I got it. And it's essentially talking about the interview that Andrew McCabe had. If you all remember, he had a. I'll go ahead and I'll fix that later. But so the moral of the story is, although you should have heard the moral of the story, but the moral of the story is, it's still no sound. There's still no sound. Man, I'm telling you, my sound is. I always have sound issues. I feel like everybody has their kryptonite. It's back now. Okay, so we're back. Okay, so as long as we're good, I'll reconcile that later. I don't know what happened, but hopefully it's fixed. Um, so yeah, like I was saying, it seems as if uh, the 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 director or former director James Comey had decided to leak information to the media via either himself or directly through Andrew McCabe, which is why he lied. And Andrew McCabe just accidentally implicated James Comey. Well, accidentally, like I said, was it truly accidental? I don't know. But politicians do have a long-standing habit of dry snitching. What dry snitching is telling someone some information knowing that it's not actually going to change anything about someone else, but you just want to try in some way, form, or fashion to shift attention away from your actions. Um, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So when Trump fired James Comey, it was highly criticized. It was highly criticized by the neoliberals. They said it was him making an attempt to hide something from the Russiagate investigation, something that I never agreed with. I said that Comey should have been fired by Barack Obama, actually. I said that Comey should have never been able to step foot in the Trump administration while he was doing the Russiagate investigation. And I said the same thing about Andrew McCabe, by the way. And of course, I was called a troll. I was, oh, you're a Trumpster. And anybody who knows me or who's watched my videos before knows I'm not a Trumpster. I am the total opposite of Trump, actually. I don't really like Trump. I don't like his personality. But what I will not do, however, is I will not allow neoliberals to portray a false narrative of a situation, because as I preached yesterday, it's about the institution, right? We can talk about policy and we can talk about the institution absent of the person who is, in office representing an institution. So I know what the FBI is supposed to be. They're supposed to be the good version, the good version of the CIA. They have not been that as of late. Well, they kind of haven't been that in general, but more so as of late, they have not been that. Why can't we discuss that? Why is it that if we talk about the FBI and the actions that their leadership has taken, that we're pro-Russiagators? It's weird to me, right? Because as a progressive, it's troubling to see the left that gets mad when a black man gets killed by a police officer unnecessarily, as they should, argue with conservatives, right? About how we should not just bow down blindly to any type of authority when referring to a situation with the police officer. Now, if we apply that exact same logic to the FBI in regarding how they're dealing with this investigation, or the Russiagate investigation, or even the Clinton email scandal, or the Clinton Foundation investigation, or even Pizzagate, for example, any investigation, or Seth Rich. I mean, the investigations at this point are kind of mounting up. It's easy to lose track of them. But if you apply that same logic, because I do apply that, I'm like, we should not simply bow down to the FBI's authority or the people who wear the badge, simply so that we can say, oh, yay, they're taking care of everything for us. It's all handled. These are not fallible human beings. They have no self-interest. They have nothing to gain from lying or confusing the public. And, the FBI and the CIA and the intelligence community in general has never had a history of deceiving the public. Never. They would never do such a thing. It's ludicrous to think that. And so, as a progressive, as someone who considers myself to be on the center left of the world, it's frustrating to have to argue with people about and justify to people why we should be at least at the very, very bare minimum asking, why did you not recuse yourself, Andrew McCabe, when you knew you had a serious conflict of interest? Or, hey, James Comey, why did you not get the DR subpoena the DNC servers if they supposedly had this, solid, super solid evidence that they had been hacked by Russia? And if you ask those questions, you're immediately attacked. You know how many times I've been called a Russian by people? I've never been to Russia. Probably won't go because I'm not a fan of cold weather. But I will say this. I'm pretty sure. I watched a lot of Olympics, right? I've seen some Russians in television shows. I've lived in New York, like in the Russian area. I've never in my life met a black Russian, okay? I'm not joking. I've never in my life met a black Russian. And so I don't believe that I am a Russian bot, nor do I believe I would be a credible hire for the Russian government to infiltrate anybody as a Russian, anything. My Russian accent is absolutely horrible. So I'm sure maybe not all of you feel the same way because you're not black, but you probably feel the same way whenever you're attacked and called a Russian for simply asking a question, presenting a logical inquiry. I hopefully hope this article will be pushed more in the mainstream media. I'm very surprised that someone at the Hill actually took the time to listen to that statement and read that statement critically about Andrew McCabe, because that is seriously damning to James Comey, because he's already gotten called out about perjuring himself under oath. He's already gotten called out about, him talking to Loretta Lynch before the Clinton Foundation. He's gotten called out about a lot. Those videos, and it's really way too many to post. If you go look at some of the interviews by the Senate Judiciary Committee, when they're interviewing James Comey, whoo, Lord, baby Jesus, y'all. He gets caught on a lot of lies. And what it appears to me is that Andrew McCabe feels like, okay, I'm fired and I'm losing my pension, and I'm the one being scapegoated. While, mind you, James, and it's by his own, he did it himself, okay? It was his fault that he's being scapegoated, so don't feel bad for him. But what I think he is more so upset about is the fact that he's being scapegoated, made out to be a criminal, and he is a criminal, but more so than the media has ever portrayed Comey to be a criminal. And Comey, in all honesty, is probably the real criminal in this entire ordeal. But because he was fired by Trump at the height of the Red Scare Part 2, at the height of the anti-Trump sentiments in the mainstream media, James Comey went down as almost like a Joan of Arc of the intelligence community, even though he's not even close. While Andrew McCabe, because there was more solid proof and more time to do a legitimate analysis and go through the correct channels to fire him, is now being, I don't want to say attacked, but he's being held accountable in ways that he should be held accountable. So, if you're just now tuning in, let me see. I don't want to switch the sound up because I don't want to go back to the article, because for some reason you all couldn't hear me when I was reading the article. But let me see. Yeah, but if you're just now joining, essentially, and I will go ahead and read the article again, or at least that part of the article, the important part. Andrew McCabe said that, well, I'll tell you exactly what he said. He said, I chose to share with the reporter through my public affairs officer, a legal counsel. As deputy director, I was one of the only people who had the authority to share that information. He's talking about with the media. It was no secret. It took place over several days, and others, including the director, were aware of that interaction with the reporter. If that interaction, this is according to The Hill, by the way, if the interaction means leaking the information, then McCabe's statement would seem to directly contradict statements Comey made in a May 2017 congressional hearing. It was asked if he had ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation, or whether he had ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation. Comey replied, no. Whew. So he lied. And it's funny because I said that I couldn't obviously say for sure at that point, but I said it's so weird how these anonymous sources are coming out at such a convenient time. And I think what's going to be more interesting, which a lot of people have pointed this out. Imagine what's going to happen when that IG report, that OIG, the Office of Inspector General, when the IG report comes out. Ooh, that's going to be fun. That is going to be a great, great time, I think. Because remember how we felt like when the memo came out, we found out that they didn't take they didn't use the correct channels, and they didn't really assess the situation properly enough to file that FISA warrant. And the Democrats tried to distract. And then they even tried to release the memo, and then Trump could not release the memo because, like the Democrats' memo, was it the Nunez memo? Is that what it's called? I can't remember. But the Democrats' memo, they purposely put a bunch of top secret information in there knowing that Trump cannot release it so that he would look bad. And so they were just distracting. So that's how you knew the memo was significant. We can talk about the text messages between the two senior FBI officials who are apparently getting it on quite frequently. They had burner phones. I don't know what age. It's crazy to think that in the intelligence world, they don't know that you can just use encrypted apps to hide your text messages instead of getting burner phones, because all I gotta do is call AT&T if you get a burner phone and get all that information. They didn't even have to do any sleuthing to get those text messages. It took like 2 phone calls. You know, if they had to call AT&T, to be totally honest with you, they probably were on hold for like 2 hours, maybe a couple of days. So maybe that's the only thing that took them long to get those text messages. But with those text messages, remember, there was all kinds of distractions surrounding that. And they were supposed to be nothing burgers. And we were over-exaggerating the significance of those text messages. And then what did we find out? We found out that Andrew McCabe was conspiring against the office of the President of the United States to such a degree that Christopher Wray, who was currently the director of the FBI, had to force him to resign. That is crazy. And he's in the all these articles. I read an article yesterday in the New York Times where they were like, he was a maverick for the FBI. It was like this glowing review of he's never done anything. He's never done anything significant. He said he's worked against Russian crime bosses in organized crime forever. And I'm like, y'all lived in New York for quite some time, people. He ain't doing a good job on Russian crime. To be totally honest with you. So now we are left with what's going to happen next. Y'all know how much me and HA are great friends. I consider him a dear friend, and I actually respect him because he's willing to go out on a limb and take a predictive stance on an issue based off of what he has available to him. And the only thing that he hasn't been right about thus far is Hillary Clinton being indicted. That's thus far. However, he has been almost spot on about everything else, even things that seem super out of when he said that he's like, BuzzFeed is going to sue the Democratic Party. I think I texted him. I was like, hey, what the hell are you talking about? That don't make no sense. They're not going to do that. And his it's not that his logic wasn't sound. It was simply that it looked like BuzzFeed was. It just was silly. I thought they were going to pay a settlement and move on with their lives. I see that Spiffy gave me a super chat. I appreciate that. $3.99. That's such a very, very specific number. But thank you. I appreciate it. And I saw, man, I cannot pronounce that name. But the $2 where you told me my audio is out, I did see that as well. I appreciate it. But I digress. So, HA predicted that BuzzFeed would sue the DNC, and he actually was right. And that's one thing I love about HA, because we have both been the type of people that we don't mind making bold predictions, because if you understand politics and people in politics, it's pretty easy to do that. And my prediction is going to be that McCabe was partially fired because of the pension issue. I think that Trump did want to make a statement by firing McCabe, because he could have went under investigation anyway, but an investigation would take a little bit longer. But the backlash that Trump would have received if he just fired McCabe without going through the correct procedure to do so would have been too great. And he comes out looking horrible. And this, they're trying to spin it. I mean, like Jank and TYT tried to spin it some crazy way, like this has something to do with Russiagate. The only thing that this had to do with Russiagate is the fact that, well, McCabe should not have been involved in that investigation at all due to conflict of interest. But they can't really come up with anything to say. Trump's hands are wiped clean. This was something that had started with the DOJ's Office of Inspector General, something that had started a while ago, actually, before it had even begun to be talked about. On top of that, the dismissal recommendation came from the FBI. It came from the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility, excuse me. When McCabe was originally asked to step down, it was because Chris Wray, director of the FBI, asked him to step down, not because Donald Trump told him to step down. The reason that he was asked to step down was because of all the events leading up to the point where the text messages were released, and it just became too much. It's like, you got to go. So Trump leaves out of this unscathed. He went through the correct channels, and which is kind of crazy for Trump, because Trump likes instant results, instant gratification. But he did it the right way this time, to the point where Jeff Sessions couldn't screw him. I know Jeff Sessions did not want to fire McCabe. I know he didn't. When that office came out, and the office, not only did they come out with the dismissal order, but they even came out with a statement saying exactly why they recommended him being fired. So now the next step, because pretty much, like I said, Trump comes out of this not only unscathed, but in some ways, people would say he's a little vindicated. In a lot of ways, they would say he's vindicated, because it seems like this entire ordeal was started on false premises, which I have been saying for quite some time. And I'm excited to see what comes next, because I'm pretty sure the next steps, especially after that statement, are, I won't say indictments. I'll say an investigation. Because you can't, I just don't see a situation where you can conspire as an intelligence officer against the president of the United States, get caught red-handed, and you think that being fired is your worst nightmare. I just don't see that. So if we're gonna speak candidly, I think that reverse. I think that Andrew McCabe should be investigated first, because, well, he seems to already be snitching, and we have direct statements contradicting James Comey's statement. So I think he should be investigated thoroughly. which the OIG seems like he has investigated him thoroughly. I think that he should be prosecuted or indicted first. Then I believe we should go after James Comey. And if we go after James Comey, especially because at a certain point, they're going to drill McCabe. And I think McCabe will take a plea bargain. Because what did I say at the beginning of this? My favorite philosophy about politicians, they're self-serving, conniving snitches. They're going to hit him with the plea bargain. And guess what's going to happen next? Guess what's gonna happen next? I hope HA's watching. I know he be watching sometimes. He was busy, but he be watching. Guess what's gonna happen next? Them indictments. Them indictments are coming. Because if McCabe takes a plea bargain, because Trump, at this very moment, if Bernie Sanders doesn't run, and even if he does run, he has to get past the Democratic Party, which I'm not really all that confident in right now. If Bernie Sanders doesn't run, there's nobody that can beat Trump. You keep letting the polls lie to y'all if you want to. He is not as unpopular as they are portraying him to be. They're manipulating the polls so they can try to manipulate the opinion of people. But that's not true. I'm one of the commentators, the few commentators on YouTube that is very, very fortunate to have a very mixed audience. So I have pro-Bernie people, I have people that are kind of like in the center, I have pro-Trump people, and everything in between, people who just really just come to hear truth. And I'm proud of that, and I learn a lot from that. And the one thing that I've learned is that there are a lot more Trump supporters than you think. And simply because they don't always have their face out there, because they'll get ridiculed or they can lose their job for, inadvertently for supporting him, anything, family matters, whatever. Simply because they don't have their faces out there doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just runs contrary to the reality that Donald Trump broke registration records for the Republican Party, people. You don't do that unless you're popular. And if I'm going to be quite frank, most of his supporters are kind of like delusional about some of the stuff that he hasn't done for them that they think he has. So when you mix the cognitive dissonance with the fact that they think that, that with the fact that he's just really popular, they like his alpha male personality. And the Republican Party is built on alpha male personality. Look how they all bowed down to him as soon as he won. They were like, okay, well, I don't like him, but hey. They were like, I don't want him to win, but hey, he won fair and square, and he did. Hell, he won in spite of the Republican Party. And they just bowed down. He is an alpha male. He is, I'm not a fan of Trump, but at the same damn time, the reason that I pay such close attention to this is because I'm not a fan of Trump. I am not going to sprinkle little fairy dust on reality because I am worried about what that will lead to. I told people the same as HA, the same as Tim Black, I believe, did. I said, if Bernie Sanders does not win this primary, especially if he loses because of cheating, especially with all the information that was released, Donald Trump will win. And if Donald Trump wins, but the Democrats, they think that Donald Trump can win. Oh, and we'll have all these seats in the House and in the Senate. No, that's not how the numbers work. In order for Donald Trump to win decisively, he would have to do something that happens only, maybe every 8 years after a Democrat gets out of office, which is you have to have a larger turnout than the Democrats do on a general election year. Every year that they have a larger turnout than the Democrats do, based on people who, larger turnout in individual states than Democrats do. And they did. And so just because when you have a larger turnout than Democrats do, every single time, this has resulted in the Republicans taking over the House, mostly, and the Senate mostly, or at least 2 out of the 3. So they get the executive office in the House or the executive office in the Senate. So why people keep being convinced that, first of all, I'm not even convinced that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. You can't win the popular vote because you won New York City and California and like, yeah, clearly the entire country wanted me to win. That's some selfish stuff right there, people. If that was me personally, if those were the states that put me over the popular vote, which it clearly was, I'd be like, look, clearly what I said and what I am believing in, even if I think that I'm right, I don't represent the desires of this country. And so I wouldn't even try to portray myself as a quote unquote popular vote candidate at that point. Especially when none of the numbers other than that fallacious number say that I won the popular vote. You were the most unpopular candidate in history. You didn't campaign in Ohio. You didn't campaign. And I mean, we can go on for days about what she didn't do. But they told y'all she had a 99% chance of winning. 99.9%. And there are people out there who, till this day, will still believe that the polls that are coming out right now are just different than the polls that are going to be coming out later and the polls that came out before. These are the accurate ones, not the last ones. The last ones were different. These, this one was done by Reuters, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. Reuters, whatever it was. And this one was done by CNN, so it's different. You know how easy it is to skew the sample size of a poll, people? To get the exact results you want? Super easy. Super easy. So, with that being said, I greatly appreciate you tuning in. I just did a podcast on an article or a study that was released that said that Trump is the absolute worst president in the history of the United States. It's posted on YouTube, but you can also download it at Podbean, on iTunes through podcasts, or Stitcher. Any one of those, Spoke. If you have any of the major, I don't do SoundCloud, but if you have any of the major podcasting platforms, you can look it up. You can type in MCSC Politics or Niko House or Mikasa Sukasa, whichever one. So listen to that. A lot of truth bomb. I'll talk about the first black president. Bet you didn't know that the first president was black. Yeah, didn't know that. Mm-hmm. He actually came up with the nation's seal, and he won. He won so definitively. He was so popular at the time in the Northeast that all the other major competitors refused to run against him. Yeah, so I'll talk about that in there too. So it's pretty cool stuff. But with that being said, please like this post. If this is your first time viewing, share, subscribe. If you have not, consider becoming part of our Patreon, our One Follow $1 campaign on Patreon. Or you can donate to the PayPal, and I'll put the link in the description. But, let's show the mainstream media that if they will not invest in the truth, then we will invest in those who do. And I thank you all so much for tuning in. Always remember, ladies and gentlemen, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.